Welcome to Prorevenge, where OP gets revenge against a Karen. Our next Reddit post is from Abel Tensor. The subject of this story is my mother, Amber. She's in her late 7s and works for a women's clothing store, which caters specifically to older clientele. She's been working for this company for some 20 years now. The manager of this store is the absolute epitome of a Karen. Extremely entitled, short-haired, chubby, cheats on her husband, and a blatant backstabber. Because the store is staffed by mostly older women, cliques tend to form, and naturally, Karen has her own cronies. During periods where no one is in the store, there also tends to be a ton of gossip. The assistant manager, Jatski, is also one of Karen's lackey, and she has her head way up Karen's butt. If Karen does something, then Jackie isn't far behind. Mimum, Amber is a bit of a ballbuster, and she has zero tolerance for garbage in her personal life. Over the years, she's tried to stay impartial when it comes to her work. However, because to her, it's all about professionalism. She also has empathy, which is something that seems to be in short supply with these other women. It also helps that she's been the top seller for her district for some 10 years. Running. Despite working part-time, Karen and Jackie absolutely hate her for it, so much so that Karen routinely schedules her for hours which are not especially good. Despite this though, Amber still has her loyal clientele, and she always comes out on top against the other sales associates in total sales almost every quarter. As expected, this naturally feeds the horrible feedback loop with Karen and Jackie. When COVID hit, the company decided to cut all commissions for sales associates. The commission was one of the main reasons why Amber endured Karen and Jackie's BS. While she only made slightly above the state's minimum wage, with the commission, she could double or even triple that amount on good days. According to her, no other retailer in the area offers this kind of system, and it's pretty unlikely the company will reinstate it even after CO ends. Along with the cut in wages, the store was also forced to decrease the amount of hours that they could offer their associates. Karen took this as a way to essentially bar Amber from being at the store. While other associates were getting 8 to 10 hours a week, Amber would see maybe 6 if she was lucky, and they'd be during times of low customer traffic. Karen could get away with this because the district manager is also in her pocket. Along with the reduced hours and the removal of commissions, the store naturally had a mandatory mask policy for all employees and customers. Karen and her lackeys would often complain about how unnecessary this was because, according to them, CO is a hoax, and wearing masks makes you subservient to the government. There were a few incidents where Karen would let people without masks into the store, despite the state and company mandates. Amber refused to rock the boat, however, so when this would happen, she would go into the back of the store and stay as far away from these people as possible. During this time, a friend of the family and good friend of Amber passed away due to complications from CO. The funeral was set for a time when Amber was scheduled to work, so she called out that day. Karen and Jackie attacked Amber and the deceased, claiming that she must have caught the flu or been in bad health, and that Amber was feeding the lie. Not long after, a few of the store's loyal clients also passed away from COVID, and still, Karen and Jackie, along with their groupies, maintained their narrative in the most vindictive way possible. Every time someone died, it must have been because of bad life choices or bad health. Never was it attributed to the global pandemic that was claiming thousands of people a day, according to Karen and her groupies. And whenever Amber decided to support the deceased in any way, she would hear snide remarks regarding how she was supporting a hoax. Some of these customers were regulars who had been coming to that particular store for years. And still, none of the groupies would relent on these points. Recently, CO restrictions have started to lift, and many of the clientele and employees have gotten their vaccines. Not Karen or Jackie, though. To them, getting the vaccine would be like pumping poison into their veins. Instead, they decided to use fake COVID white cards with their information, effectively forging the documents. Recently, Amber had an emotional conversation directly with Karen where she expressed her concern for her. "I just want you and your family to be safe, so please get the vaccine." Karen responded with her normal snide attitude. Of course, a few days later, however, Karen sent a text message mentioning that she had finally gotten the vaccine. She didn't. Amber replied that it was great and that she was happy for her. Karen just replied with a gif of some guy throwing up the middle finger. This was the beginning of the end for Amber. During one of her shifts, Amber overheard Karen and Jackie discussing how Amber is a sheep who bought the story about how Karen had taken the vaccine. During that same shift, Amber was working with a customer in the back, and some woman came into the store and stole a couple items of clothing, probably totaling out to be $100 at most. Now, It's company policy that during all shifts, there must be at least 2 employees in the store. And during this particular stretch of time, Jackie was the only other person in the store. According to the video cameras, Jackie was up in the front of the store, playing with her phone when this woman came in. That evening, Amber received a call from Karen telling her that she was on probation pending an investigation for allowing this woman to steal from the store. Given the company's policy regarding theft, this really made no sense. It was at this point that Amber truly decided she'd had enough. Eventually, this probation led to Amber's dismissal, and the official reasoning was fairly vague. The revenge. Amber had phone recordings of these women backstabbing her and gossiping about rather scandalous things dating back for years. She had gathered quite the collection, because you never know when you need to cover your own butt. Over the years, Amber had gone to HR to no real avail, whether it be because they were also in the pocket of Karen, or they just don't care. It remained to be seen. Amber was also very good at keeping any paperwork and proof of these visits. She also recorded the call where she was fired. Amber had a ton of very loyal clients who were pretty distraught when they learned of her dismissal. One client in particular runs a column at one of the major newspapers for the nearby city. Amber compiled some of the greatest hits from her recording collection and had me email them off to corporate offices of the company, specifically the CEO, Seto, and basically every member of the board of directors. Along with those recordings, she wrote an email about how Karen, Jatsky, and their group of sheep all refused to get vaccines and had falsified their vaccine documents to pass the company standards. One of Amber's friends put her in touch with the columnist for the newspaper, and they got copies of the recordings, the text messages, and the dismissal phone call. They also did an interview which was for an article and a TV slot on the local news. Amber discussed the commission cuts, clear favoritism, lack of any intervention by HR, forged documents, company policies, the theft, basically anything relevant to paint these women in a terrible light. Among some of these recordings were bits of gossip that included conversations regarding Karen's various boyfriends over the years. She was married, and Amber also wrote an anonymous email to the husband that included these recordings. Stuff hit the fan pretty fast, as you can probably imagine. Karen, Jatsky, the district manager, and a couple of the groupies were immediately fired and put under investigation for forging documents. While forging a vaccine card isn't really something too serious, it could lead to some pretty hefty fines. There's no specific law against forging the vaccine white cards. However, because the white cards contain the government seal, well, you can just imagine how illegal that might be. Let's just say the FBI stepped in on this one. After the article and TV slot ran on the local news, the CEO reached out to Amber to formally apologize for the behavior of HR, the district manager, Karen, and Jackie. The CEO even went so far as to offer Amber a raise, but Amber declined because she found a job that actually paid a fair wage and let her work her own time. The real tough part for the CEO and the board was the fact that their employees were breaking the company policy for a store that exclusively catered to older women regarding a virus that tends to kill older people. They caught some heavy public backlash for this. Karen's husband seems to have separated from her after finding out about her infidelity. Whether or not this will lead to a divorce remains to be seen. The best part for Amber is that many of her clients started coming to her new store, and again, she's kicking butt as one of the best sales associates. Our next Reddit post is from Mr. Buck in 2013. I was transferred from sunny San Diego to Camp Loon, North Carolina. I'd been in the Marines for over 4 years, and I'd been sent to a unit that would finally give me the chance to deploy to Afghanistan. In case you don't know, before your unit deploys overseas, you have a mountain of classes and training to get done, which starts around 6 months or so prior to the date. I'd become close friends with Joe, who was my senior-most corporal, and we hung out all the time outside of work. We would barbecue, go to the gym, have parties with the families, etc. Well, that fateful time comes, and we get sent to the land of never-ending sand. About 4 months in, I start to get a feeling that something was not right due to the lack of being able to talk to my wife on the phone or Facebook Messenger. I do have a special skill that I honed from sneaking past my Vietnam veteran father, who was very set in that bedtime meant bedtime and not raid the fridge for snacks time. I'm very quiet. You won't hear me coming unless I want you to. One day, I came into our PB, which is just a big container that housed around 8 people, and I saw my wife's face on the video chat of my best friend Joe, who didn't hear me until I shut the door. I played it off like nothing, and the rest of the deployment had moments just like this, where I would see or hear them talking and just take notes for my revenge. Before things really got to me mentally, our time in the sandbox was coming to an end, and we flew home. The homecoming was uneventful other than my 2-year old, not realizing who I was for a few minutes. Then, it was happiness all around. Just like before deploying, we have a mountain of classes after we got back to scan for traumatic brain injuries, mental health awareness, certifications, etc. And nobody was exempt from completing the various death by PowerPoint classes that were scheduled for that week. Out of nowhere, Joe had random appointments almost every day, or something would come up where he would have to leave while everyone else was stuck all day long at a class or at a medical, getting screened for everything under the sun. Do you ever have this feeling that your gut is telling you 100% that something is going on, but your brain is like, no, stop being paranoid? Well, that's what I was dealing with on a daily basis. I began to follow Joe a few days a week when he would leave work early or have to make a call, and sure enough, his car would be right outside my house every single time. When I finally confronted Joe, he denied it up and down like I was going crazy, and genuinely made me feel like I was offending him by the accusations. I quietly compiled the evidence and brought it all to the battalion sergeant major, whom, if you don't know, is the top of the food chain under the Bataillon Commandé. After a week or so, I get called into the battalion commander's office to discuss his findings and to ask me what I want to happen. My answer is simple: I want Joe's rank. Justice came swift and painful. Joe was awarded loss of rank, forfeit of a half-month's pay for 2 months, restriction, and extra duties. Shortly after we came back to the States, Joe was promoted to sergeant, and in less than a month, his rank was gone. I heard from mutual friends that he left his wife to be with his new girlfriend, who's also pregnant with his third son. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I was trying to stay with my wife because of my son, but I found out that was a huge mistake. A few months after the dust settled, I was transferred back to San Diego to go on a cruise, and my wife and I were giving this our last shot. I went underway for 2 weeks. And guess where she flies to? Joe's house, to have their last bit of time together. After I found all this out, I just lost any interest in being nice and making it work. I deployed on the ship and actually met my new wife there. We've been together ever since, and I've been much happier than when I was being mentally tortured by my ex. Moral of the story: don't screw your best friend's wife. Our next Reddit post is from Blue-Eyed Brunette. I was dating this guy, Dan, going through a custody battle with his ex-girlfriend over their toddler. We worked at the same bar with this girl named Billie Jean. Billie Jean was an old friend of Dan and had worked with him before. She also had previously worked with the mother of Dan's child, Rachel, and everyone was seemingly friends in remaining civil, or so I thought. Billie Jean had secretly taken sides and wrote a terrible affidavit lying about Dan. Dan somehow got a copy of it. As I was reading it, I kept getting more and more irate. I hate liars. And one thing I really feel that crosses a boundary is using a child for leverage to hurt the other parent. Billie Jean was knowingly lying under oath and siding with Rachel to prevent Dan from parenting his kid, and he was by no means a bad dad. Well, Billie Jean had enemies that I worked with and had easy access to contact. These enemies had sold Billie Jean a car that she wasn't paying them for. I didn't necessarily like the people who owned the car, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I called them up and told them I came in peace. I asked if they had Billie Jean's address to get back their car. They did not. I passed off Billie Jean's info and waited for her to call me. Now, I was one of 2 people who could have ratted out the location of the car, and when Billie Jean called me to tell me her car got repoed, she said she had no idea who could have done it. It would have either been me or her ex Robbie. I tell her casually, I don't think it was Robbie. And I swear up and down she responded with, well, who could have done it then? I held back laughter and finished the conversation with, oh, I don't know. That's so weird. Type comments until she hung up. Dan was next to me in the car, snickering. Dan once shared custody of his child, and Billie Jean lost her bar job because she didn't have transportation to work an hour away. To this day, I wonder if she ever pieced together that it was me. I don't like liars. That was our Prorevenge. And if you like this content, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos